Hey folks, it's here and welcome to a quick tutorial on Victoria 2. So I've looked up through the tutorials to try and show my friend how to play the game, and I found two kind of tutorials. Either one that was like a 10 hours single video just to teach the game, and other were like 500 episode let's play. So I found them quite long and going in depth, while the game is actually quite easy to play. You only need to grasp the basics to be able to understand how to play the game, and then with experience you gain the rest. So this tutorial will assume that you have played the basic game tutorial, so you know how to move around in the map, how to select unit and such, which is basically what the tutorial only show you. And I will go more in depth into other more important things in the game if you want to play properly. Okay, so we'll start off with I pick up France. It's a pretty good country if you're starting off the game. It's pretty easy to manage. You don't have too much stuff around, not like the UK. If you really want to start the game, pick like France or Prussia or Austria or Russia or Sweden. These are like the countries I'd recommend. They will be easy to play, and what's nice about these bigger countries is even if you do something bad and you fail, then you're not out of the game yet. Okay, so now we will start by going into the production screen. So here we have the all the factories in the in your country, and since Victoria 2 is about the industrialization, that's really important. So first thing, you want to show the empty states, so you see every single state in your country that do not have a factory. And now what we want to do will be to build factories for, let's go to Alsace-Lorraine, and we have a small button here. We'll press that to build a factory. Now we'll see all the available factories we have here, and let's just pick like a cement factory because it's cheap, and you press build, and voila, you're building a factory already. Isn't that nice? Pretty easy, right? 2 minutes in and you're already building a factory. So basically what happened when you build the factory yourself, you will start to stockpile construction materials, so matching parts, timber and iron. And once these are stockpiled, then the factory will start being built, and will take 365 days after amassing all the needed supplies. So that's basically how you build a factory. Pretty easy, right? On the screen we have a couple more information. For example, we have the name of the province, we have the number of factories. Every state has 8 factories max. We have the number of clerks. These are employees, more highly educated. And we also have the less educated craftsmen. And we also have the percentage of capitalists and percentage of infrastructure coming from railroads. So it's pretty easy to understand, straightforward. The important thing to realize is that you have your factory up and running and you get some information. For example, if we pick the factory here in Ile-de-France, we have a luxury furniture factory, and we can get a lot of information from the tooltip. For example, here we have even more information as to what we need. For example, we need some tropical wood as well as some furniture to build luxury furniture. And if you mouse over, for example, here it's red, it's because we do not have enough to build. For example, current stockpile is 0 and we demand 3.57 each day. So right now we're not able to produce anything because we do not have the main input. As you can see here, produce 0, max output 0.66. So basically here you will find all the information concerning the production, the output efficiency. And here, if you mouse over, you'll get more information on the input efficiency, which technologies will be modifying a lot, but early game you will stick around about 100%. So you have different type of factories producing different goods, so it's not that important exactly what is going on early on. Eventually you want to create exactly what you need, but for the time being, for example, if we need some ships, we could build ships, clipper shipyard or steamer shipyard. But basically, unless you're sure you need something, you don't really need to build the factories. What I can recommend is build a liquor distillery, because everybody drinks liquor in the world. So that pretty explains the reason why you will never run out of money. And you can also make glass factories, because it's cheap and you need them for liquor. So it's like going hand in hand together. So that's it for the factory screen. We also have a couple more options here that are important. We can open up all the factories at once, or we can subsidize all the factories at once, and that's pretty much it. So let's go into the next here, the foreign investment. Foreign investment is only when you are a great power. So one of the 8 power, first 8 countries in the list, the most powerful countries, then you're able to build factories into smaller countries. For example, if I grab Colombia, I show empty states. Let's say in Panama, I can come and build a new factory. So let's say a cement factory, bam, they will start building a cement factories, and we will gain industrial score from that. So you see already, if I tool up over the industrial power, I'm getting 0.174 score from just that cement factory that's not even built. So it's a pretty good way to increase your industrial score, but it can be complicated because the spherelings could decide to take everything on their own and steal all your investments, and basically that's pretty much it for that. I'm not too keen on using that. Of course it can help to influence countries, which we will see in not too long, but yeah, it's pretty much spending money outside of your country, which depending on the strategy you want to take might not be the best thing to bother about when you're first starting the game. So the next screen we have is productions. So in the production screen, you actually see everything that's being produced on your country. For example, we have some cotton here. We're making 49.3 cotton, and we're selling domestically 49.31, and we're exporting 25.17. Please don't ask me why. I don't understand why we use more than we're producing without importing. That's a bit weird. And if we click on the icon, we get another pop-up that gives more information on that specific product. For example, cotton, we have 10% of the world production. It's being produced by the RGOs. The RGOs are simply normal province productions. They're being used currently by the artisans to make fabric, and they could be used by artisans as well as fabric factories. So that's it for the production screen. You get a lot of nice information. Always remember that you have the tooltips that says everything about everything, right? So that's pretty nice, pretty informative. And for example, when you have like fabric and you want to know what you need to make it, if you come in the screen, you will see, oh, you need cotton and dye. So if you rely on that, then you will know exactly what you need to fabricate whatever. So now let's go on to the last production screen, and we have project. Project is basically just the investors in your country, the capitalists, trying to put money into projects to build them. For right now, we do have one project. It's building a railroad in Ile-de-France. So what we have $0 up to now, and we'll need like 1.2k dollars, and we have no wood, no steel, no cement, and no investor. So what you can do, you can actually press on that and select if you want to invest. So let's go and invest the maximum we can, bam, and now the project will use the money to buy the needed goods and start building the railroads. So it's pretty cool like that. Alright, so that deals it for the production screen. Let's move on to the budget screen. On the budget, you have different things. On the left, you have the daily income, the tax from the poor, the middle, and the rich. And you can set the taxation from 0 to maximum. Right now, due to the economic policy we have as a government, we're not allowed to tax more than 50%, which is pretty dumb. But since I changed the government, let me speed up to the second. Alright, it's a lot of pop-ups. And now we actually changed the government economic before even starting the video, so I can now tax up to 100%. And it seems like it's a lot, 100%, but if you mouse over, you'll see tax for 100%, but efficiency is 36.99. So we're actually only taxing 36.99. So that's pretty important to remember. Even if it's at 100%, if you don't have the admin efficiency and tax efficiency, it will not really tax 100%. so we can pump that up early on. So that's it for the income side. We also have the gold produce. So for example, in Mets, we're producing 4 pounds a day. So that's pretty nice. On the other side, daily expense, we have the national stockpile. So here, for example, we have the ammunition for the standing army, so we can lower that since we are not at war. And we also have the spending for the navy, so we can lower that too, because we're not at war still. And the last slider is actually construction. In construction, for example, we have iron, machine parts, and timber. And if you remember, we start building a factory, and that's exactly what it is. So right now we're piling up for the stuff. It's pretty expensive, but once it's piled up, we're no longer buying it. So we can lower that if we need, or we can leave it up. It doesn't really matter. I usually leave it up unless I'm really missing a lot of money and building a lot of stuff, then I'll lower it. But otherwise, I try to keep it up at the maximum to make sure to buy as much stuff as possible to get things going faster. Now we have the next education. Education is really important in this game. So no matter what, always keep it to the maximum, as at least as much as you can. It is really important to get the education up. This is for the researchers. This is something we'll see in the next screen. And under education, we have administration. Right now we have a 27.2% efficiency on administration. So we will bump up the spending to get that going up. And once it's at 100%, once the administration is going well, then we can cut prices back down to about 31%, and we'll remain at 100% for a while. So we can save a lot of money this way. But meanwhile, until it gets up, we need to get it to maximum spending. The next is social spending. So depending on different reforms we will select during the game, we will have to pay subsidized to the employees, pensions to the employees from the state, and this is what this slider will do. For example, we have unemployment subsidized and pensions, and everything is at 0 because we do not have any of these reforms. So once you have the reforms passed, you can control how much you pay, from nothing, which will make people angry, to everything which will make people slightly less angry but still angry. So that's that slider. I usually keep it to the max. It doesn't, I mean, early game you don't really see it. At late game, money is usually not an issue, so you can leave it there for now. Now we have military spending. So military spending is just paying for the officers and the soldiers for the army. For example, officers being paid 17.2 and soldiers 35.3 pounds a day. So I want to increase that. I really want to increase that. When you increase up the salary of the people of the army, you will get more troops to build, and you also get more of officers, so they will be able to lead the army, and we will see that in not too long. And least but not last, whatever, we have the tariffs. The tariffs are actually a fee that your population has to pay on every imported goods that is not within your sphere of influence. So if you're buying goods for another great power or from another country that's not in your sphere, then this is what you will make up as money on that. So for example, if it's at 100%, everybody has to pay the normal price for the good plus the same price to you. I usually keep it up high until people start getting really angry, then you can lower it down. But you will eventually, just playing around, start to get a feeling on how the game goes with the money. Economy wise, the game is slightly broken, I'd say. There's not really anything to be bothered or scared of. You can just play the game, and worst case scenario, you'll go bankrupt, that's all. But if you keep a good watch on the income and spendings, you should be able to always get a project, a daily balance into positive, and that will be perfect. And finally, in the same budget screen, we also have the loans, loans taken, loans given. Let's say we take a loan. Let's take 1,500. It's not a lot. It's pretty much nothing. But we can take a loan. Everybody, some countries will lend us some money. and eventually some people, we actually lend to ourselves some money. That's a bit odd, but we lend ourselves some money. And eventually what happens is that the more loans you take because you're running out of money, the more higher the interest rate will be, and eventually you'll be bankrupt. And when you're bankrupt, what happens is everybody has a casus belli on you to make you pay up. So you may want to keep an eye on that. It will be important later in the game, but right now it's not really important. It's only $1,500, so it's pretty much nothing. Alright, so now we'll go into the technology tree. Alright, so technology wise, we have different type of administration that will show up right here. Right now we are Avant-Garde Intelligentsia, and what it gives is that every Navy Tech research get minus 25%, culture research plus 5%, industry minus 5%, and you will always get these little bonus up there, so you can always make sure, depending on the administration you have, what are the bonus and malus you're getting for the research. So for example, we have a very good culture research, so we could start working on that first. So here you will have different thumbnails that shows Army, Navy, Commerce, Culture, Industry, and every single one of them has a lot of technologies. If I remember correctly, I think it's 30 technology per tree. So for example, now that we know that we have a bonus on culture, we can go into culture and then we can start looking around. There's a lot of ideologies, not ideologies, I'm sorry, technologies, and it can be very overwhelming, but basically I will tell you, you want these here, philosophy, maxed up first, because they offer a lot of research points. And it's just crazy and will make your research much faster. So always prioritize these. Right now they're great for a good reason. It's because there's an activation years here, 1840, and we're 1836, so we don't have that activated yet, so that's why it's not researchable. Right next to it we have the research points. Here we need 6,857, and we're making about 10 a day. So that will give you a good idea of what's going on, how long it should take. And once we're selecting technology, for example here, one of the very great technology to start off is always medicine. So you want to select this technology, just hit start research. The research will be started, and here we can see in 1837 it will be done. So we will let that go in. And another important thing is every technology has inventions. And what happened is, for example, we're working on medicine. We have all these little inventions that will be possible to be discovered once the technology is done. And these inventions will allow us a lot of little things. So you can spend a very large amount of time looking out through everything. And there's a lot of stuff. Seriously, it's a pretty complex technology tree. Pretty interesting system. I like it. And basically just playing the game, you'll be able to determine exactly what you want to do, how you want to guide yourself in the world depending on your strategy. So there's not much more I can add here. So let's go on to the next screen. Politics. So politics show the internal governments you have. For example, here we are a HMS government. We are technically a democracy with a king, so we can dictate whatever party we want to lead the country. So for example, here you have all the parties, or we call old elections. So let's go and all the parties. Here we will see we have 3 different parties available. We have conservative, that's the light blue, liberals, that's the yellow, and reactionaries, that's dark blue. And each of the party will offer different policies. For example, we have trade, economic, religious, citizen, and war policies. And if you over each of them, you will get more information as to what to do. For example, state capitalism. Right now, I did choose to become reactionary before starting the video, because with state capitalist, it says you are able to build factories. Whereas before we were orientists before a change, and we have the laissez-faire economic policy, and we're not able to build factories. Only the capitalists are. And early game, liberal is not that great because nobody has money, and capitalists are not as intelligent as you will be. So that's up to you. I always prefer to have state capitalists or plan economy. Right now we don't have plan economy, but that's basically just communist. Or even interventionist. Even though you cannot build factory, you can assist heavily the capitalists in building the country. So that's it for the ruling parties. So let's move on to the upper house. So right here we have a graphical representation of the upper house. Right now 70% of the upper house is conservative. And basically, if you're wondering what is the upper house, it's a little bit like the Congress. You will have a lot of people debating on different things, and eventually you will be able to enact reforms. Right now, for example, we need at least 50% of the upper house supporting a reform to pass it. And for example, the political reform is only at 18%, and social reform, nobody cares about social reform. So by getting more militancy, you will increase the chance that people will support reform, or by changing the upper house to socialist or communist or fascist even, then you will get more chance to be able to change the reforms. As for the reforms that are on the right end of the screen, we have both social reforms and political reforms. So in the political reforms, you have a couple of important things. Most important is slavery. You can outlaw slavery in the whole country, and I recommend a lot to do it. Not only because slavery is brutal and savage, but also because it's broken in the game. Slaves are not that great. Once you outlaw slavery, the slaves will become free people. So they can still do the same work they usually do, like laborers or farmers, and they can also become soldiers. So there's absolutely no point in having slaves. We also have the upper house, how it is selected. Right now it's appointed, so it's people from the rich becoming in the upper house. But we can also have ruling party only. That's pretty much useful when you're fascist. That's how you do it. Or you can select 2 per states, and you will eventually be able to modify your states leaning toward a party to favorize them into the upper house. Or we can have directly based on the population, so they come from all branch of the population. So different ideologies depending on the population will be brought forward. We also have the vote franchise. Vote franchise basically just determines who's able to vote or not, and basically you can have no voting, and you'd be just an absolute monarchy, and that's pretty cool. But right now, as French, we have wealth, so only the rich and middle class are allowed to vote. But we could still move forward toward weighted universal, where the rich votes are worth more, or even just universal, where everybody's vote count as much. And every time you move down toward more liberal ideas, you get chances for better immigration. And just overing and over any of them, you will get a tooltips giving you exactly the information you'll get from enacting that reform. So we have all of these here, pretty interesting. These are all politicals. We also have social reforms. As I mentioned earlier, we have the pension and employment that we will need to finance if we pass these reforms. And we have the very, very, very important social reforms of healthcare and school system. So both of these are what you need to prioritize, because healthcare will make the population grow much faster, and school system will educate the people much faster. So you cannot miss that. These are the most important. Alright, so in politics we also have movement. In movement right now we do not have anything, but eventually the people will mass up and start asking for universal voting or just social reform, and you will see them popping up here in the left screens. And eventually, if you don't answer to those requests and needs, the people will become rebels, and they will show on the right screen. You will get a lot of information on how many brigades the rebels can field, how long until they will probably pop into rebellion. So it's important to keep an eye on that. And one of the key is, once the little flag here becomes red, it means you need to take a look at the rebels. You will soon get a rebellion. It might be a huge rebellion of millions of people, or it could be like 3 people trying to attack you. You want to keep an eye on that to make sure nothing's going too badly in your country. And now we have decisions. So decisions are basically just decisions you can take. I don't have any other word to define that. For example, we have build Suez Canal. So we get a small information of what the decision is, and then if you hover over the question mark, it will tell you exactly what you need. So first, you need to either have the Suez province owner in France's sphere of influence or own Suez directly. And then you need to have machine tools, nitroglycerin, and iron steamers technologies to be able to build a Suez Canal. So that will be much later. But eventually, whenever you get a decision available because you fulfill, for example, here you only need expressionism. So once you fulfill the needed, they will pop up and you will get a green icon right here to know you can enact decision. And usually they're pretty useful, but not always. So you want to read and see what happens. For example, here, if we have at least 45 prestige, we can restore the academia. That's basically the administration for research. And if we select it, we will lose 15 prestige, get academic confusion. And here you can see the army, navy, commerce, culture, industry, everything will come back to 0. And one of the new feature of the beta 3.04, which I recommend to grab, is this little tick box, check box. And basically, for example, right now it says, oh, we have a available decision to take. And basically when, for example, you don't want to take the decision, just uncheck it and it leaves. And you're fine, you don't have that decision in the screen anymore. A little sip of water. So that's basically it for the decision. Pretty easy and straightforward, just read what they do and enact them or not depending on what you're doing. And the last screen we have is release nation. It is if we want to release a satellite. For example, I can release a satellite of Catalonia. Let's do that. Let's just release Catalonia, and right now we have Catalonia here. So it is our puppet right now because we release it, but that's all it does, and it also removes infamy that we will cover in a few seconds. Alright, so now we got population screen. In population screen, you have a lot of information on the population, and I could spend hours on going into it and analyzing everything, but seriously, just to play, it's not required to do that. You don't need to understand what's going on in the country. You'll just need to make sure people are generally happy, and what you can do is you can set people via militancy. So militancy is how angry people are, and if you hover over your mouse to see what's going on, you'll get exactly why there's a problem with what you're doing. For example, the slaves here, Afro-Antillean and Martinique, have monthly change increase because they're a minority culture and their everyday needs are not fulfilled, and they're conservative, so they get a little bonus on militancy for that. But that's it. Everyday need is not fulfilled because they're not getting the coal. They don't have the money to get the coal, but they're slaves at the same time, so they will never get, and they will always be angry. So that's basically it. You can really see every single population in the country. It's really fun to go through, but we got 8.74 million pops in the country, so we will not take the time to go through everything. But in your game, if you want to take hours on hours just to verify population, please feel free. Another important thing in here is national focus. What happened is that every time you develop a certain technology and culture, you will get new national focus. Right now we have 2 possible, so we will make sure to be using them, and it's red because we're not using them. So basically, to set up a national focus, you will come here. For example, we will take the largest country, the largest province state, which is usually what you need to do, and click on them. and then you will need to select this focus. So you have different focus. You can select to focus railroads, immigration. Never select that, it's not working, it's broken, it's not as you think, don't worry about that. So you can select railroads to force capitalists to build. That's not really worthwhile neither, don't bother about that. Or you can focus on production if you want certain type of production, like you want people to make firearms here, capitalists to make firearms, then you can focus that, but I never use that. It's not fun, it's boring, really boring. Basically what we want to do is focus on promotions. You have different type of promotions. Usually what people will do is focus clergymen for education, capitalists for the money, craftsmen and clerks, and also soldiers if they need. That's usually the only thing people will choose. And you have one last thing is party loyalty. If you want to change the vote into a certain path to get your part in power, then you can modify it very slowly via this here. And let's take for example clergymen and both most populous provinces. That will help us tremendously with the education level. And as for the education level, you can see here we are 58.5% literate, and we're going up by a certain percentage every month. So we just want to get that up high as possible. And clergymen also have the ability, you can see right here, once 2% of the population are clergymen, we gain extra research points. Same thing for clerks except 4%. So you really want to focus these two promotion classes so you get more research done faster. So population screen is really deep. You have a lot of information. If you click on slave, you can see you see everything you need to know, right? Everything. So it's pretty crazy, pretty scary. You will eventually be able to see colonial immigration, external, internal, everything. There's just so much information that I cannot even start going on that. So we will close that now and we'll go on to trade. So trade screen is basically just information window. You don't want to mess around with trade. The world trade system is fucked up in the game, and we will have to live with that. It will never change. It will remain fucked up forever. So we want to be careful with everything. So since now it's all on AI, everything is being bought automatically. So we don't need to bother, but we can still get more information. For example, if you over silk, you'll see that the Chinese Empire making 55 a day, Guangxi 24. You'll get some information on who's producing the goods. For example, I'm pretty sure we are top on we're making 1 machine parts a day. So you can also compare yourself to the other countries, see how well you're doing, and if you click on it, you'll get the same information that we were getting in the production screen. So we can see the world production we have, we can see what they're used for and what they may be used for. So a lot of information going on here. This is another one of the screens, just like population, that you can just go and get information, try to understand what's going on, but I do not recommend messing with it. I do not recommend removing automate unless you're really sure what you're going to do, because the country will not really, for example, if you automate buying luxury clothes and you want a stockpile of 2,000, then the country will go in debt for 2,000. They will do it. They will just spend money in a crazy amount just to pile up 2,000 luxury clothes. So that's why you gotta be careful when you're playing around here. And seriously, unless you're playing the CSA one stockpile cotton, you don't need really to modify anything here. And there used to be a small checkbox here near stockpile. It's no longer there because it was broken, but if you have an older version, it will be there. Do not check it. Do not. It breaks the game. I promise it breaks the game, so do not check it. Alright, so that's pretty much it for trade. Let's go into diplomacy. So diplomacy, we have the top 8 great powers as well as every country in the world. So let's say we want to take Haiti. Here we'll have some information on Haiti, their world ranks, their score, what is their population, what is their setup compared to different countries. So right now we could influence them by, for example, selecting here current influence, increasing the influence. Since we're a great power, we can get them more in our sphere. And eventually, when we pile up enough influence point, we can increase the opinion until we get from neutral to cordial, then to friendly, then to in sphere. But that's a little bit complex. If you're playing for first time, you don't really need to bother about a sphere of influence. There are a lot more things you need to worry about before. But otherwise, we can also use all the information here to know exactly what we want to do. We can form an alliance. They will not accept. If you hover, you will see why. It's because of base influence, the distance, government type. That's why they will not accept to be your ally. So not a problem. AT is not a good ally. But eventually, you will be able to fare around the diplomacy screen fairly well. It's not too important to focus on every single country. What's important is to make sure you get good allies. Like, who could be my greatest ally here? Spain, maybe? Spain will accept an alliance, so we can do that. So once we get allies, then they will join us in war. I'm pretty sure you understand what's the basic behind an alliance and all of that. And there's one last feature in that screen of diplomacy I want to show you. It is justify war. So justifying a war, you select the option, and let's say we want to acquire a state or release puppet. We will come and select cut down for size example. So we will manufacture a justification. This will take about 167 days, and the maximum infamy we can get is 13. So let's proceed for that. Infamy will be right here if we do get caught, and we are allowed to a maximum of 25. So you keep an eye right there when you're trying to justify wars. If you get over 25, everybody will gain a free casus belli to attack you for containment because you were too aggressive. That's often the first mistake people are doing. So make sure you keep an eye on infamy, keep it under 25 unless you're powerful enough to beat up the whole world on your own. Otherwise, make sure it's under 25. So for the great power screen, we have one last little piece of information here. And for example, if you select a non-great power country, you will see relationship with every single of the countries. But if you select a great power, you will see who's cordial, who's friendly, and who is in their sphere. So once a great power as a country as friendly or sphered, they will be able to intervene in any war that these people are involved in a defensive war, as long as they set up no objective on their own. So for example, if Netherlands gets attacked now and start losing, the UK could intervene for a statu quo on their side. Now we have another screen, show war. So we have different wars going on. That is all the wars in the world. For example, we have the Ottoman restoration of Tripoli. The Ottoman wants to annex Tripoli, that's the Ottoman Empire, and they have 45 military strength, while Tripoli has 2 military strength. So eventually, the Ottoman will beat down the army, start invading, occupying territory, and rack up war score, and the war will disappear from here. We also have, for example, the Texan War of Independence, and we have Mexico trying to annex Texas, and they have 13 war score while Texas has 3. So eventually Mexico will beat down Texas and all of that. But what will happen is as soon as they start racking up score against Texas, well, the US is friendly with Texas, so they'll be able to intervene in this war, and you'll see Mexico get steamrolled by the US. And we also have a Brazilian war going on. So basically in the screen you can see every single war is going on. And while you are at war with someone, you can always add war goal here. And for example, we are not at war, but usually if it's gray out, it will tell you exactly why. Maybe you don't have enough jingoism in your country, so that's why you cannot add a war goal. But right now we're not at war, so it's not possible to add any war goal. But we could always offer a subsidize to Texas. That will probably help them against Mexico, even though I'm not gonna play a game here. But still, that's basically what you can do here. And now if we go into the last, war justification. So we are working on cutting down brand new size, and there's still 167 days left for the justification, so we'll see the bar fills up. And every single day there's a chance we get discover. If we do get discover, we will gain infamy compared to what was left of the justification going on. So that's pretty much it for diplomacy. Let's go into military now. Alright, so military, on the left we get all our generals and admirals. We have some pretty good generals, but that's basically it. I suggest leaving auto create and auto assign leaders on, because you don't really need to bother about that. The AI will take care of setting up these soldiers at the right place. Under that we get some information, for example, war exhaustion, supply consumption, organization regain. All little information that's pretty interesting to know exactly what's going on. For example, the unit start experience, military tactic. All things you will really need up in the future in the war, even though you don't need to know about the values. The values are there, but you don't need to bother about that. The important thing is that you get good stats there, but you can always verify what you will need. And now, here is a list of all the armies in the country, right? And every single one of them, if you click, you will select them. For example, here we have an army of 12. Here we have an army of 9,000 troops. And all the armies will be selectable by here, but I usually don't go by this way. I simply either click here or select them directly on the map. Alright, so that's it for the army section. We can now build an army. So if you click build armies, you will have all type of units, and you can build them here in different provinces. So for example, I will recommend you to always build a couple of infantry, artilleries, a couple of hussars, a lot of hussars, and usually you will want infantry, but you don't need it as France, because since you are a great power and you have a large population, you can always mobilize 6% of the people. So 6% of the people will mean you could get up to 188 brigades, and right now we could be able to fill 106 brigades from the poor people. So that's exactly what you want to care about for the infantry. You don't need to waste money on infantry, just waste money on good troops, and then select the troops and split them apart with the infantry. And least but not last, we have build navy. So right here we'll be able to build navy, and if we hover, we can see why we cannot build, because right here we must discover iron steamers, and we need a level 3 port or greater. So that's why we're not being able to build it. And both of these are technologies in the navy field that we'll be able to eventually work our way. So for example, I want to build a couple man of war. I just select man of war and I start building them, and it's easy as that. So that pretty much wraps it up for all the information up top. The last thing I'll show you is, for example, if you want to build something, you will need to get used to the little map modes here. If you look around, you will see what they do and you will experience. Or for example, I will select Bordeaux and I'll create a naval base as well as a railroad. So that's how you build things in the country. That's basically just what you need to do. And after that, while playing the game, you will acquire a lot of experience, and you will eventually understand things that you did not at start. And I think the most important thing in Victoria 2, if you want to be successful, do not be afraid to fail. Failure is fun. Losing is fun. That's what this game is all about, and that's what Paradox games are all about. It's never fun to lose, but if you don't lose, you're not learning anything. So it's really important to play, keep it safe. You don't need to be overly aggressive and try to attack everybody, but get involved in wars, get involved in crises when they'll pop up. And I forgot to show you, but in diplomacy you will eventually get crisis tab open, and basically you'll be able to side with one or the other side of a crisis. For example, Greece want to free Thessalia from the Ottoman. You could side with Greece or the Ottoman, and every other great power could do the same thing. So it will lead eventually to very great wars. And yeah, basically just get involved in the world. If you play as one of the country I gave you, so France, Prussia, Austria, Russia, or Sweden, get involved in Europe. Start shaking things up. Just go to war, kill people. This is what the fun is all about in this game. And hopefully you enjoy that. It's definitely one of my favorite, well, it is my favorite Paradox game. Not one of, it's the favorite. It's the one I found most in depth, and there's a lot of things, and I've been spoken for like 45 minutes, and I could add on for hours and hours and hours and hours on end. But I feel like I pretty much said all the very basic of every screen. If you do the tutorial, you will understand how to move troops, assign leaders, and you should be fine. You should be very fine to play the game now. So go ahead and play the game. If you still don't feel safe to play the game, no, don't worry. You can always watch my videos. So go to my channel, subscribe, and watch all my Victoria 2 playthrough. So thank you for watching. Have a nice game, and see you next time.